I was like, I need to do more, better, quicker. And it's so hard. But I started at zero. Even though I have millions of followers across all my other platforms, I know nothing about YouTube. I started at zero. And so I think the lesson that, dumpster diving taught me was it's okay to start at zero when you need to start at zero.
You're 46% more likely to remember it if you write it down. And right. If you write it down with a pen that has a texture, you're even more likely to remember it. And you think that this wasn't my podcast, like I'm not going to get to see like what we're talking about ever again, that I got to write it down. But that's the thing is like, and that's one thing about you, like every time I'm with you, you expand my thought process. You make me think about things bigger. You make me think about things deeper. And I think one thing that you do so well and what you've done so well with agents is you've really speak to them in a way that they can take your words and apply it to their business. You're not talking about these grand ideas that are unimaginable or incomprehensible or unachievable. Everything that you do, you break it down into these bite-sized pieces that you can easily sequence and organize, and you show us how to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'll tell you, I was an investment banker at Goldman Sachs, and the high finance world, right? There is a lot of status comes from working in the complexity, working in the nuance. And it really bothered me because it was about, hey, what jargon and language can I use? And that showed the pecking order of status overall. And Glennda, I don't think that helps anybody, because the simpler the words, the deeper the understanding.
Right.
And so I think about this phrase that I tell myself often, which is showcase the complexity, but deliver the simplicity. Right. And so the idea is I want to be able to, and I think, even if you took a real estate agent that's walking into a listing appointment, that's a good example of, we end up telling our clients, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I do this, I do this, I do this, we're going to do this, I do this, I do. Well, okay, you showcase, like, that's just complexity. Now you're making me tired. You're making me scared. And that's okay. But after that, what is the simplicity you're going to deliver? So for example, you'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, I want to show you our 12-point process on the things that we do before we bring a home to market. But the only thing you need to remember is our photo shoot next Tuesday.
Exactly.
Right? You showcase the complexity, but then you deliver the next step, which is a simplicity, right? And so the key components of that is really understanding that. And Glennda, how to bring it all together is, and everyone should take note of this. There's only 3 ways, and I call it show, flow, demo. You either, when you want to simplify something, you got to show them something. Hey, when we market your property, we do 12 things. This, and this happens. Let me show you. And then you show them something, right? And the show shows proof on what you just talked about. That's a show.
Yeah.
The flow is, so if there's call it the transaction process, right? Hey, in this transaction process, once a property goes under contract, there are 3 stages in when things happen. Let me show you the flow. Then you show a flow chart. This happens, and then this happens. And so you show exactly, like you said, the sequencing of it. That's the flow. And the last part is the demo, where you can say, hey, when someone calls our office, or calls the sign, then it automatically answered by an AI bot on our team. Let me demo it for you. Call this number that's on a sign right now, and then put it on speakerphone. So now you demo live in the living room, right? So now the client's like, wait a minute, I now see what Glennda just said. It's not just about her sign. I know that when her sign goes up in front of my yard, and somebody calls that, they are in good hands. So to simplify anything, it's very easy to say, well, can I show it? Can I flow it? Or can I demo it?
I love it. And nothing makes people more comfortable than clarity and certainty. And when you can give them clarity and certainty, they feel comfortable and confident to make a decision to work with you.
Exactly right. And I think and a lot of times people, the clarity is how you explain it. The certainty is in proof.
Right.
Right. And the proof can only be done with show, flow, or demo. Because you can say, well, I'll tell you about my client who has this testimonial. No, you got to show the testimonial, right? And
Right.
not a testimonial on your website. You got to show the testimonial screenshotted from a Zillow, or screenshotted from your app, or screenshotted from your text messages. It may look janky, but showing that actually brings more safety to life.
I love it. I love it. So, Sharran, yeah, correct me on a couple of things. I've got two things I want to ask you. So, when you did your introduction, you said you're the president of Real. I was thinking that you had made a transition onto the board. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're correct. So I'm in the process. I'm still a Real now. I'm in my role at Real till June 1, and on June 1 I transitioned to the board.
Okay. All right. In my head, I was thinking you'd already made that transition. So I just wanted to clear that up in my head. Number one, of course, you know me, I take full credit for the relationship with you and Real. I mean, I was there day
We both
one.
were. Yeah.
And I love that. You have been so instrumental in their growth and just in many ways. So I love that. The other thing I want to ask you about is it future proof? Future school. Future
proof.
Talk to me a little bit about that. I love it.
Well, thank you. So I was thinking about how to serve the real estate community, and Glennda, in the last kind of 2 to 3 years, we've had more changes happen to our industry, or at least we're living in these times, than it's happened in the last 25, 30. And it's changing how we do business forever. I mean, starting with the pandemic. Without the pandemic, there was literally no virtual brokerages. Like, the pandemic is what gave. If there was no pandemic, there would be no Real, and there would be no virtual brokerages. If there was no pandemic, there would be no QR code, right? QR codes were ugly, right? And now the pandemic is what made them actually happen. And now you have QR codes on signs, etc. And then with regard to all of that, you then had the NAR and the buyer rep agreement stuff come in. Now you have, clear cooperation being challenged overall. The two things that actually define the foundational pieces of the U.S. real estate economy are buyer representation and clear cooperation. Those are the two underpinnings of our economy. Because I will tell you the crazy part, not many people realize this. If you and I had to go to Lake Como or in Paris and we had to go buy a condo, we would go to one real estate agency in their storefront. They may be able to show us 3 homes that they have listed. And if that agent was not there, another agent at that agency can't show it to us, then we have to go back to another agency, another storefront, and they are going to maybe show us something that they have listed. Like, there's a reason for that, because there's no buyer representation, right? So since there's no buyer representation, you can't have one buyer agent show all the homes that are listed. So what happens because of that is it makes the process extremely long, extremely cumbersome, and now you are sitting on an asset that you can't buy or can't sell, is very illiquid. That is this fundamental reason. Buyer agency is the fundamental reason why the U.S. economy is liquid.
Yeah.
Right? And now let's talk about clear cooperation for a second, and then I'll tell you about future proof. Is that whether we like it or not, clear cooperation essentially states that within 24 hours of the process happening, a home has to come to market, which gives the client the maximum amount of exposure in all the channels that we have. Now, however you orchestrate it, that the big difference between that and commercial real estate is that commercial real estate does not have to do that, which is why when you and I have to sell an office building, it takes 4 years. As opposed to when you list your home with Glennda, it takes 4 days. Like that's the process, right? So with I saw all of this stuff coming about, and I was like, man, and we've still not talked about technology and AI that is, that's completely changing the face of the world. So I was like, how can I create a group where all that people talk about are how to future-proof our business, how to future-proof what an agent does? Because removing an agent from the transaction, like I did 121 flips last year, right? Every single flip I did with an agent on both sides. And I could not imagine doing all these flips, keeping all these, contractors right and inspectors right and lenders right without an agent tying the entire transaction together. So what does 10 years from now look like? What is the role of an agent 10 years from now? Do they all have a couple of, AIs working for them? I don't know. But the main idea for the group, again, is everything that I do is 100% free. The main idea for the group was to have a group where agents would come and talk about, hey, how do you future proof for your business? So it's a completely free group. It's called Future Proof. You can Google Sharran Future Proof, but it's 100% free just for agents to future proof their businesses for the future.
Well, and that kind of segues me to the next question is like, you and I both know you could charge $100 a month and you could make $1 zillion with your future proof. But you don't. Why?
Why?
Like why?
Yeah.
Why? Because you and I both know. You and I both know we have friends that are $19.99, $49.99, $99.99 a month to get this, that, or the other. Let's not even go into, coaching and kind of things like that. But like, why give it all away for free?
Yeah, I'll talk about that for a second. So 2 big reasons. One is, nothing is more valuable than goodwill. So when people think of you or think of me and they're like, okay, all of Sharran's stuff is free. People are paying me with their attention. They're paying me with their goodwill. I'm getting a significantly better ROI than anyone charging $77 a month. Because the day I turn around and I want to actually sell something sometime in the future, everyone's going to feel like, man, he's given me so much. The least I can do is like invest in his project or do this or support him or hit share on his TED Talk video or whatever. So, I think I'm getting paid in goodwill, which I'm super, super grateful for. And I want to do more. That's why I wanted to keep doing more, because that's why you can deploy more and more and more goodwill in the marketplace. It's a very, very intentional thing. And a lot of people will say, well, Sharran, I'm not in a financial position to do that. And I'm like, well, yes, I'm fortunate to be in a financial position where I can do that, where I can have, like you and I can build a team and we can give everything away for free. We can do that. But you also have to know how to monetize the goodwill in the future. And that's an important part of it. So that's kind of number one, is I get paid in goodwill. The second is, I believe we're entering the age where coaching is dead.
Really?
And one, maybe you get to hey, I can spend a little time with somebody, et cetera, but I get more benefit from talking to my AI and with mastermind groups than I do with one-on-one coaching. Now, a lot of people will say, I need to, I use coaching for accountability. Sure. You use coaching for accountability because you don't have clarity around exactly what you want to do. When my son, Neil, I need to pick him up at 3:00 from school. I don't need accountability to pick him up at 3:00 from school. I go pick him up because that's responsibility. I have insane clarity around that. Now, maybe I'm wired differently. And they'll say, well, Sharran, I'm not wired. I need the accountability. You're in the wrong business. Yeah. If you need accountability, you are in the wrong business. If you need accountability to call your clients, you are in the wrong business. That's weird. Right? So I don't think coaching should be, I think the years of accountability that coaching drives was in the past. Now you can have an AI tool do it for you. You can have most tools do things for you. So what I believe is give away all information for free, but sell implementation. So give away the information, but sell implementation. So for example, if I said, like I'm a big fan of, if I said, hey, let me show you exactly how to build I'll make this up, how to build a lead generation automation, right? I'm going to show you step by step how to do all of it. Just go do it, or you do it, or you have your team do it. If you can't do it, I'll do it for you for $100,000. You choose. Yeah. So now because at the end of the day, and I'll tell you why, Glennda, at the end of the day, you get to walk away with something tangible. So I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, and you will love it because you're a Ritz Carlton fan. Because I know this about you. So I worked at Four Seasons. And I went through the Four Seasons training program, and it's with Issy Sharp, the founder of Four Seasons. And we were in his offices in Toronto. I had a half a day with him with like 30 people from my, Four Seasons training class. And he said this story, and he said, hey, imagine you and your wife just, married recently, and you walked into Crate and Barrel and you saw a table that you loved, and say the table was like $20,000. And you could afford it. And you talked about the table. You talked where it would go in your house. You talked about what you would put on. You talked about the memories that you would create with it. And then you're like, yeah, we should get this table. And then you buy the table. And then the store attendant says, hey, we can ship this table to your house right now today. Will you be there to get it? And you say, of course, that's fantastic. So you get home and the table gets delivered, and they set it up in the right corner in your breakfast nook or whatever in the dining table. And you sit down. And then every day you come down the stairs, you touch that table. You appreciate the 20 grand that you spent on that table. You see the table, you feel the table. And then Issy Sharp, the founder of Four Seasons, said, he goes, when people come to the Four Seasons Punta Mita, they spend $20,000. And when they leave, they don't have a table. All that they have is the memory of their time at the Four Seasons Punta Mita. And it is our job to install a table in their minds so that they can take the table back home.
Oh my stars. Sharran, I can't believe that I've known you forever. I have heard you tell thousands of stories. I've never heard that story ever. And it's so true. I mean, think about it. I mean, I always say we provide the backdrop. You create the memories of your life in the homes that we sell. And and you're right. When you don't have something tangible, so that memory is the table.
Yeah. Well, so if you think about that, right? Selling something, like selling information today, is really difficult. Yeah. Because information is ubiquitous. Like you could go to YouTube and get anything that you wanted. Now you got AI, you could get anything that you wanted. Like all my stuff was free. Like what's shocking to me is I'm like, I make my best stuff and give it away for free. So how is anyone going to compete? And so that's why I think that I've gotten in this mindset of, hey, can I give away all my information? And at some point, I'm going to end up selling implementation. I don't know what that is, but when I sell implementation, I get to sell implementation. So that's the reason I give everything away for free.
That's awesome. I love that. You know, I think one of my all-time favorite Sharran stories is the raccoon story. And I love that story so much because every time I think about it, I think it reminds me that your greatness, you were never so proud in your life that you couldn't do that. And it just, every time I think about it, it reminds me like, here's somebody who's so great that I have so much admiration for, and they were never too proud to do something that they needed to do. Like you were prepared to do what you needed to do to get to where you needed to go. And it just reminds me of one of the reasons why I think that you are so great. And every time I hug you, I think about that. And I think about that raccoon trying to steal that sandwich from you.
For those of you who don't know that story, I'll tell it very quickly because I think it would be helpful for context. But there's a part two to, there's a learning around that. And that's the big part here. When I went to college, my parents sold everything that they had and gave me a check for the first year of tuition. So I went to school. I got there on my day one and I handed financial services the check. And they're like, oh, great, Sharran, here are your room keys to your dorm room. By the way, since this is an international check, because I was born in India, they said that, it's going to take 10 to 15 days to clear. Those are the times when you actually had a check, right? And when I'm dating myself here. And so that meant I didn't have a board plan. I didn't have a meal plan. And so I would go to every like frat party and every like club party to get a pizza or a root beer float or something. And then over the weekend, campus was dead. I couldn't get any food. And I was walking by this dumpster and I saw, a couple people having a pizza party throw a couple of pizzas into the dumpster. And I just waited for it to get dark. I jumped in the dumpster because I'd not eaten for 24 hours. I grabbed a couple of slices of pizza. I ran to my room. I was like, all right, that satisfied me for the night. And the next day I did not eat for another 24 hours. And I naturally walked past the same dumpster. And I saw a couple of people throw a bunch of Subway sandwiches in the dumpster. And you're not talking like 6-inch subs. You're talking like party subs, right? And I was like, I really hope this is not tuna, but anything else I will eat because I'm allergic to fish. And so I jumped in and of course I got a couple of, sandwiches. And then I saw these All-American box of Pop-Tarts and like strawberry, like it was great. And then this was later at night, the light was streaming through this really smelly dumpster. And I grabbed this box of Pop-Tarts and suddenly something whacks me in the face and I'm bleeding. And I touch my face and I'm like, why am I bleeding? And I see this raccoon in the side of the dumpster. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have to fight for this box of Pop-Tarts with this raccoon. This is crazy. And in that moment, like you can't even think about anything. So like fight or flight kicks in. And I like hit the raccoon with my foot and I jump out and I run as fast as I can. And And Glenda, first thing I do is I run to the health services, and I'm like, I really need a tetanus shot or something right now because I know that raccoon was was not spayed for rabies. And so, uh, and I was thinking about it, and there's two big lessons from these, right? Lesson number one is if that was if that was ground zero, it makes you feel like what it does is it reduces it lowers your floor. It says, all right, if that's as low as I can go, then I'll be okay. Like I'll figure it out. And so it gives you the lower you can go, the more risk you can take. And so I think what that did was it made me less risk averse and made me take more big swings. And I'd say I'm fortunate from a material quote basic material success perspective is just because I've taken more risk and more risk, more reward. I've just taken bigger swings because of that overall. And the second is what it does is it also allows you to realize exactly what you said, that people come from different walks of life. You have no idea the struggle that someone else is going through. Like when someone saw me or someone saw you, they would have no idea that that was ever true. And so I never told my parents that story. Like they came out on a podcast once and my mom heard it and she sent me an email saying, we need to talk. That's all she said. And I've yet to have a conversation. I'm too afraid to have a conversation with her about it. But here's a very interesting thing. I was probably one of the highlights of my career. I was invited back to be the commencement speaker at my alma mater. So I did the commencement talk. And so
at Vanderbilt, right?
At Luther, which was a school in Iowa. So okay. That's where I went for undergrad. I went to Vanderbilt for business school, and I went back to campus and I told the story as part of my commencement address. And when I was done, I went to that same dumpster and I took a selfie. So I have a picture of me at the selfie with the dumpster, which is very eerie, right? By the way. And I'll tell you for all of us, I'll tell you the big lesson in all of this, Glenda. A lot of people want to climb up the mountain. And let's say they get 2/3 of their way up the mountain and they realize it may have been the wrong path sometimes. And so they're, like you said, you used the words and you did it really well. You said they're too proud to change status, to restart their lives, to go back down, to start at zero. And I think in today's world, we are maybe 20 years ago, starting at zero was not well looked upon or was harder, et cetera. But in today's world, you and I can reinvent ourselves in the next 30 days. Like you and I can go sell insurance tomorrow. You and I can, I mean, I may not be able to be an NBA player tomorrow, but like I could do most things. I can reinvent myself. So the ability to go to zero and say, hey, I started at zero. Glenda, I remember on social media, on social and content, like you started at zero on TikTok. People don't realize that. You started, like Glennda Baker started at zero. Like no one realizes that. She just didn't have millions of followers on day one. And that's important. And starting at zero, you built a plan, you followed a plan, you delivered on it, and you were your true authentic self, but you started at zero. Yeah. Everyone starts at zero. And that does not mean that you only have to start at zero one time in your life. It's okay to start at zero multiple times because it gives you insane perspective. So I'm doing the same thing as you are, Glenda, what you did a few years ago. I'm doing the same thing on YouTube right now. I started at zero. I was like, I need to do more, better, quicker. And it's so hard, but I started at zero. Even though I have millions of followers across all my other platforms, I know nothing about YouTube. I started at zero. And so I think the lesson that, dumpster diving taught me was it's okay to start at zero when you need to start at zero.